But here's the thing, like most of our human tendency, what the ancient Israelites dealt with or what we deal with now, there were those among the Israelites who wanted to get more than the day's supply. There were those who were a little too greedy and they wanted to take a little bit more than a day's worth. They were worried, well, are we really gonna have enough tomorrow, God? Are you really gonna provide for me tomorrow? And that bread, when they took a little too much, it soured and maggots grew on it. Because I wanna tell you something today, listen to me real clear. Faith is not about having enough to store up for tomorrow. It's about trusting that God will actually show up today. Think about that. Faith isn't about storing up stuff for tomorrow. It's about trusting God to show up for today. Give us this day our daily bread is not a prayer for us to ask for surplus. It is prayer and a cry for sufficiency. God, you are enough for today.
Good morning. It's good to see you today. Just a couple of housekeeping things just to remind you that on June the 1st, we're having an all-church baptism at Siesta Beach. What does that mean? It's not going to be the whole church there. But anybody that wants to be baptized can show up at the lifeguard stand. That's the yellow lifeguard stand at Siesta Beach at 6 o'clock, and we will baptize you. So what does that gain you? It gains you entrance into the water. So just to let you know, that's what it is. You don't have to be baptized if you don't want to. If you want to, it's up to you. But it's something the church has celebrated for years, and we also celebrate it here as well. So just stop by and talk to Kevin at Grand Central. Let him know you're coming. And if you don't let him know you're coming, it's okay just to show up. That's the way it happens at different times. So that's what's going on. So what's going on today?
Today, we're back in our series, The Lord's Prayer, the Our Father. And as we've been talking about, this is probably the most famous prayer that we've either heard in some way or memorized or recited. And Dr. Baucom and I have challenged you guys to pray the prayer every day. And as we learn this prayer together and sort of the deeper meanings that Jesus has in each phrase, what we want to see is how is this prayer transforming your life? So reach out to us, send us an email, let us know how this prayer is changing you and your prayer life on a daily basis. So
let's say it together. And we're going to put it on the screen. Just say it out loud with us, would you? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. So really interesting thing about this prayer is that as I think about it, and I've been praying it every day this week, sometimes multiple times a day. Our Father, intimacy. I mean, it just talks about how connected we are to God. Who art in heaven, everywhere, beyond the physical. God is everywhere. He's not just in the sky. He lives in your hearts and your lives. He's all around us. Hallowed be your name. It really says you are sacred. You're the source of life, and we honor him because of that. Your kingdom come talks about the values. Your kingdom, we want your values to become our values, and we want your life to embrace us. Your will be done. Well, that's a good one. It's not my will, it's his will. What does that mean? It's this understanding that the love of God lives in me, and I'm to reflect that to the world. So then it goes on earth as it is in heaven, change my heart to reflect you. So last week we talked about this. Give us today our daily bread. Let me remind you what we talked about last week. Also, before I do, if you want to watch any of these, you can go online and watch these. And if you're watching today and you missed one of these, you can go back and watch these in previous weeks. But here's the summary of last week. I want to trust God with my life. Give us today our daily bread really is my dependence on him. My life works better with God being at the center. And lastly, give us today. I'm part of a family where sharing is natural. So this prayer is a prayer of worship, Father. It's a prayer of submission. It's a prayer of connection. It's a prayer of conviction. Mm-hmm. And what's really fun is when someone comes to me and says, I know that. What can you teach me about this prayer? And the answer is, hang on. Because there's so many things that, and the fact that you pray it and think about it, we've done our job. I mean, the fact that you think about, what does it mean? Does it mean more? Not just what we think, But we want to know what you think, because when you're connecting with God, praying the prayer, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be your name. I mean, we all know the prayer. If not, most of us do. But today we looked at a prayer of forgiveness. So let me jump in. Remember those Staples commercials? The ones that have the easy button?
That was easy. That was easy.
Remember those?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is.
That was easy.
So it's interesting. On those online discussion boards, they were asking the question, if life had an easy button, what would you do to make it easy? And you know what people said? If I really want my life to be easy, first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to make money.
That was easy.
It's not easy. Second thing is, I want to get a good job. Or my life would be easier if I could find the perfect person to marry. I'm sorry, but we're both married.
That's right.
So I mean, my life would be easy if I knew the difference between right and wrong. Or my life would be easier if someone said, I've got the perfect diet that will make your love handles disappear. That's easy. Or this one. My life would be wonderful. I'd like an easy button to just press the button and my whole house is clean. Would you like that? Or your yard work is all done.
Yes.
But then there was one in this online discussion board that said this: I wish there was an easy button for forgiving my dad. No details, just the words, I wish there was an easy button for forgiving my dad. So let's get started. Let me ask you, is there anyone in your life you wish there was an easy button for forgiving? I wish there was an easy button for forgiving anyone, anything, anytime.
Yeah.
Add to it. What do you say?
Yeah. I'm not as old as you, but the longer I live, the more I realize this is crucial. And this is one of the things I learned from Dr. Baucom here, as a man who's one of the most Christ-like men I know in my life, is that the more important the relationship is in your life, the more difficult forgiveness tends to be. And as I walk through these challenges and trying to help raise my kids and co-parent from a distance as my kids are in Dallas, he's shown me this, that it's hard to forgive, especially from a distance. But the more important these relationships are, the harder it is to forgive. And in this series, Our Father, it's all about the significance and the meaning and the impact of these different phrases Jesus tells us in the midst of this prayer. It's not just one long prayer that you're memorizing and reciting, but there are literally prayers within the prayer that cause our transformation. And most people I know are familiar with this prayer, but yet we miss the power of each phrase. So today we're going to look at the phrase, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And this leads to point number one. If you're taking notes, you can write this down. Forgiveness is not excusing, overlooking, or tolerating. In order to truly forgive, I think we need to begin with looking at what forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not excusing someone. If somebody does something to hurt you or disappoints you or inconveniences you, and you say, oh, no big deal, no problem, don't worry, what you're doing is not forgiving, you're excusing. And that's not always a healthy response, and that's not always true forgiveness. You see, there was this little boy, I remember this story I heard. This little boy was memorizing the prayer, and he got to the part where it says, forgive us our trespasses, and he said this, forgive us our trash baskets, as we forgive those who put trash in our baskets.
That's close.
It's not a bad paraphrase, but what it reminds me is that forgiveness doesn't mean I'm going to excuse the garbage. It just means I'm choosing not to carry it around. And forgiveness is not overlooking something. When something happens, you have to deal with it, but most people want to blow it off. We don't want the confrontation. But that's overlooking, and it's not forgiving. Because here's what I want to say to us today about the struggle with forgiveness. When I choose to forgive someone, what I'm not saying is, it's okay. Forgiveness means I'm going to say, what you did was wrong, and it hurt me. But in order for this pain to not have control over my life, I'm going to forgive you for it. And that's how you release. Because here's the thing, we read the scriptures about healing and Jesus healing the people. For some people, being healed from being hurt it's not, how do I say this? It's not a moment, it's a movement. It's not a finish line, it's a faithful walk. I had a young lady in my office the other day she's gone through the ringer. People have hurt her, used her, things have happened in her life, and she said, will I ever be healed from this? And I said, that's the wrong question. Sometimes it's not about being healed, it's about going through the process of healing. Even when we think about like this word truth, Jesus never uses this idea of truth, whatever that is, as truth settled. He uses this word about truth as this discovery. I'm discovering something that leads me to more discovery. And forgiveness is a process. It is something you have to practice. It's like a dance. If you don't know how to dance, the first time you try it, you and your partner are very, very awkward. You step on each other's toes. But over time, you get better at it. And that's part of the practicality of forgiveness.
Which leads us to point number 2.
Point number 2, forgiveness is an important relational skill.
I mean, some have said that forgiveness is love's hardest work, but it's also love's most important work. It's the single most important relational skill that you can have. When it comes to great marriages and great friendships, we're usually taught, and I've taught marriage enrichment, marriage classes over my lifetime, and the key thing we taught is communication is the key to marriage. But there's something we discovered that's even greater that helps a marriage be sustained for a long time, and it's something beyond it. It's called forgiveness. I mean, you show me two people who are close, and my wife and I have been married over 49 years, and she has this great ability to forgive me, and I have the great ability to overlook her. So it's, no, you know it doesn't work that way. I mean, it's forgiving each other, and that's where the dynamic goes. No one is perfect in a relationship. And you know, all of a sudden you step on someone's toes, but good communication to work it out. Good communication is important.
Right.
But you got to work it out and say, I'm sorry, I thought through that again, and if I had to say that again, I wouldn't say it that way. Or if I had to do this again, I'd be more sensitive. If I had to do this again, I wouldn't answer that phone call right while we were having a conversation. You know, there's just certain things you learn, and you just go, how do you learn that? By making mistakes. And you make mistakes, and you say, I blew that, I can do better, and you go on, and that's forgiveness. So why forgiveness is hard, and there's a reason. Brain researchers tell us a lot about that.
Yeah,
what do they
it's
say?
a super interesting study. Physiologically, within our brain, everything about our life is really rooted in the brain and the chemical secretions that happen there. But here's the thing. When we dwell on revenge and retribution, when you've been done wrong and you start thinking of the ways in which I can get even, it's actually a stimulation of pleasure in your brain. When you think about what someone did to you, how wrong it was, how you didn't deserve it, how you'd like to give them a piece of your mind, your brain secretes this neurotransmitter into your blood system that makes you feel good. And if this is true, resentment, grudges, and revenge as a feel-good mechanism of the body, then that makes forgiveness love's hardest work. But here's the thing, not forgiving is even more dangerous. It's the most dangerous thing that we can do.
Yeah, Frederick Buechner says this. He said, of the 7 deadly sins, resentment is possibly the most fun. Why? To lick your wounds, to smack your lips over grievances long past, to roll your tongue over the prospect of bitter confrontation still to come, to savor the last toothsome morsel, both the pain you're given and the pain you're giving back. It's a feast fit for a king. It's that picturesque, isn't it? What you're really saying, the chief drawback is that while you're wolfing it down, what you're really wolfing down is yourself. The skeleton at the feast is you.
That's right. There's an interesting study, some of you will not like this, especially if you're an animal lover, but this is true in nature. You want to know how Incas and Eskimos catch wolves in the Arctic? It's a process that's very, very similar to contemplating and resonating with thoughts of retribution and revenge. What they do is they take a sharp knife and they let the blade freeze. Then they dip the blade in whale blood, let that freeze, and they continually dip this sharp blade in whale blood, and they stick it in the ground with the blade exposed. And then the wolves come because they smell the whale blood, and they start licking on the knife. And before long, it begins to melt, and as the wolves are licking, they're cutting their own mouths. And they begin to lick and bleed to death because they can't tell the difference between their blood and the whale blood in this violent act of just consumption. It feels good at the time for the wolf, but it ultimately leads to their death. When we fail to forgive, the results are devastating. You see, here's the thing. Forgiveness, the way we're framing it today, it seems very spiritual. Oh, you have to be holier than thou to do it. No, it's practical. And relationships break without forgiveness. Marriages fail, friendships end, and parenting becomes absolutely incredibly difficult if you cannot forgive, because it's a muscle. You have to work out the muscle of forgiveness, or else the weight of all your relationships will crumble under it. So I want to say it this way. You don't have to be a saint to forgive. You just have to be human enough to know that you will need it one day too.
So, and then a side note, if your spouse gives you a popsicle, strawberry popsicle,
that's right.
You just think about it just for a minute. Just say it. It's kind of gross, isn't it?
That's right.
So let's go to the number 3.
Here's point number 3. This is awesome. Forgiveness is what displays my connection with God. When we pray, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespassed against us, I will forgive you just like you forgive others. Jesus doesn't stop there. He teaches us how to pray this prayer. Like, God, forgive me as I forgive others. But he also says something elsewhere in the Gospels. He says, if you don't forgive others, God will not forgive you. How do you interpret that, Dr.
I think where the end result is really where we land. You can tell people who are forgiven because they have a forgiving spirit. Mm-hmm. And if they don't have a forgiving spirit, there's some work in their life that needs to be done. It's about spirituality. It's about connecting with God. When I realize that God flows through me and he helps me to become a better human being, and my shortcomings, my trespasses can be many. You say, well, what do you mean? I mean, let's just go through a list of things that people struggle with. Anger, road rage, deception, not being able to tell the truth, just dishonesty, some things that you struggle with, and you go, well, that's not, how do I deal with that? And I think that when we get the Spirit of Christ, I think it transforms our nature. Mm-hmm. It transforms our heart. We become more kind, less rambunctious, less rageful. And you say, well, I'm a Christ follower, but that person cut me off. So, and I blew it. And then I just go, that's a great opportunity for you to go back and say, you know, God, I don't have to start back at the beginning, but I can start where I am today and say, I messed up today. Please forgive me my trespasses, and let me forgive those who trespass against me in some measure or another. So I think it's important that we just keep doing that.
And this is awesome. When I forgive, it's evidence of God's grace flowing through me, not just to me. We all want it, but can you give it? Because this is the very nature of God that we get to participate in. You forgiving is not a moral obligation, it's divine imitation. We are imitating the very nature of God when you can forgive. And when I forgive someone, let me say this, I love this. When I'm able to forgive, you talked about that forgiving spirit. I think that's so true. When I'm able to forgive, it's not proof that I'm a good person. It's proof that I've been with God.
Right.
That's true.
That's amazing. And if it says, God, forgive me my trespasses, my failures, but what if I don't forgive others? Then I think you need to go back into my connection process with God. You know, there's a parable of a man who owed a master a ton of money. Let's pick out $1 million. And this is one of the parables. And the master comes back and he says, well, where's my money? He says, I don't have it. You know, I just don't have your money. I've spent it. And please don't throw me in jail. I've got a wife and kids. Don't throw me in jail. I've got all these problems. And the master looked at him and says, you owe me $1 million, but he had compassion on him. According to the parable, he says, no problem. You know, it's okay. And the guy goes out, and as soon as he leaves, the master goes out and finds a guy that owes him $10. And he finds the guy that owes him $10, and he has the police come and throw the guy in jail. Now, he'd just been forgiven $1 million, and the first time he comes to, he throws him in jail for $10. And then the master finds out. He comes back and says, no, that's not the way it works, man. As a matter of fact, why don't you go in jail with him until you think this through? And it's inconsistent with someone who's been in connection with God to not have a forgiving spirit. That's part of the process. So, and I'll tell you a personal story. In 1975, I'm going to use dates. I know this story so well. In 1975, Becky and I were married. And actually married February 76. But in late 1975, my brother, 10 years older than me, his name is Dennis, he sold us a car because I had a Plymouth Barracuda and I was going to become more respectable. So I bought an Opel Manta. It looked like a Civic. It was a little 4-door Opel Manta. It had 17,000 miles on it. It was 1 year old. I paid him $1,700 for the car. Back then, you could buy a new car for about $3,000. Just to let you know, that was a long time ago. And there was a problem. I never got the title. My brother said, where's my title? I can't get it. The bank has it there. The bank's doing some funny business with the title. I can't get it. And I said, well, what happened is he didn't really pay off. It was collateral. He never paid off the collateral, and the bank held the title. So here's my brother. My brother, for years, I didn't have a title to the car. So what I talk about my brother, then when I talk about him in a good way, I'd say, no, a dirty, rotten scoundrel. He cheated his own brother. For 2 or 3 years, that went on. And finally, we were in Nashville. Becky and I were in college and finishing up there. And my brother came to town to visit family. And I mean, I went to church and I heard some pastor preach about forgiveness. And I thought, oh, I need to have a talk with my brother. So I went to my sister's house and said, can you come outside for a minute? And we sat in the car. And I said, I want you to know, I've been bad-mouthing you for years. I said, it's eating me up, and I just can't take it anymore. And I want you to know, I've slandered you. I've said nasty things about you. Would you forgive me? With tears coming down his face, he said, I deserve everything you said. He said, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Would you forgive me? And then brothers 10 years apart, we hugged each other. And all of a sudden, that which was in between us, you know, I forgave him and I felt better. He forgave me. It was gone. About 10 years later, I stood in a cemetery. We buried my brother. And I thought, I am so grateful. I'm so grateful that forgiveness did not cloud our relationship. I'm so grateful that as I was doing his funeral, I'd say, he's a dirty, rotten scoundrel, put him in the ground. No, he's my brother, and I still love him, and I still miss him. And I'm so glad that we could clear the air. And there are things like that in our lives. We have to step up. Forgiveness is not just for the person who's offended you. It's for you. I need to get over that. I never got the title, by the way. I had to junk the car. I drove it for years, but I had to junk it. And why? Because I never got a title for it. Did I talk about it? No. That day was over, and I'm so glad that I have a loving relationship with my brother. And where did it start? Not from me. It started from somebody reminding me that the presence of God brings forgiveness in your lives. And I want to be connected to that presence, and it's changed who I am today. And I think it can change who you are. And there's some circumstances that maybe you're going through that you just might need this, which leads us to number 4.
Here's the final point. Forgiveness is counterintuitive. Ain't that the truth? You see, the natural impulse of the human heart is not mercy, but measurement. What do you mean by that? We keep score, don't we? We keep score, we want payback. But forgiveness disrupts that instinct and calls us to live by God's grace and not by our grievance. There's this joke about this man. He was bitten by this wild dog, and he goes into the emergency room, and the doctor does a test, and he goes, yeah, man, that dog tested positive for rabies. I'm sorry, we got to do some treatment now. He says, hold on, give me a pen and a paper immediately. He's like, chill out, man. You're not going to die. You don't have to start writing a will immediately. He goes, I'm not writing a will. I'm writing down the names of the people I need to bite before I get cured. You see, forgiveness, let me tell you what forgiveness is. It is a spiritual rebellion against your biological wiring. It's the ultimate act of trust. By letting go of my right to retaliate, I open the door for God's justice to take place, not mine. Because if it's true, I hear this all the time, God's ways are higher than my ways. Then if that's true, then I know that my ways are gonna be replete with revenge and retribution. See, I want you to think about, even on the cross, Jesus never sought retaliation. He never sought revenge. He never sought retribution. But yet, this is not a denial of justice. It's a deferral of it. And what it says is, I'm going to trust that God knows how to set things right without setting the world on fire, because that's what I would do to get my way. And that's the difference between the heart of God and the heart of man, is that I don't deny justice, I just defer it unto God and say, you handle this, because I'm going to burn this mother down, and I know you won't, and I trust you in this moment of my pain, that I can forgive through your grace and power, not my own. And I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, so what do we do? Well, some of the experts would say, first we need to rediscover the humanity of the person that hurt us. First of all, they're human.
That's right.
And need to see why. Secondly, we need to renounce our desire or our right to get even. Just because sometimes it's not about even.
That's right.
Thirdly, we need to revise our feelings toward the person we forgive. There's a change that can happen. And people say forgiveness works. The experts say it works. But what if I can't? What if I can't forgive? So let me give you a story. What if you were to be given a pair of tennis shoes? I'll take you over to one of the high schools, Riverview, Sarasota High, you pick the one. It's got a track. And we're going to let you run around the track, and we'll give you the right shoes, some running shoes, and this is what I'm going to say. I want you to run and break the 4-minute mile. Nobody here can do that. I mean, sorry, it's just not. There's few in the world who could possibly do that. I don't think, maybe we are not those. But then I said, well, you can't do it with the shoes. What if I gave you a bike? Okay, we got a shot at it on a bike. Okay, but some will say, well, I might struggle even with a bike. Okay, how about a car? Can you do a mile in 4 minutes if you have a car? I think so. What's the difference between shoes and a car? Come on, a car's got an engine. A car's got some power in it.
Yeah.
A car brings some power to it. Forgiveness is like trying to run a 4-minute mile. You don't have to do it with shoes or a bike. You have something with power in it. It's the presence of God in your life. It's more energy that's available for you to allow you to be a forgiving person. It's not just your strength, but it's the connection of God within that provides the energy that we need to do the things that are most difficult for us to do. It's in that the source of power is found in our connection with God.
I love that. My daughter, just a personal story, she made a bad choice a couple of days ago, and I know when she makes a bad choice because I get text messages from her saying how she just loves me and wants to live with me in Florida, and I'm the best daddy in the world. And so immediately I take that and I text her mom, and I go, what's going on? And she made a bad choice. But in that co-parenting dynamic, I live by this law. Forgiveness rules, flexibility rules. And her mom was really like, she needs to feel the pain of this decision. And I said, no, she needs to learn from it. And sure, pain can bring about a type of learning and change of mind. But I said, I'm gonna stick to what I preach from this pulpit at Suncoast. We learn best by often getting it wrong first. We learn best by often getting it wrong first. And I said, I want her to feel the pain of this, but the pain has to have a purpose of learning. And so we came together, we forgave our daughter, obviously, and we came up with a solution that she could still do what she needed to do and be a part of this party that she was a part of for her friend. And that's something that you have to dance with. There is this dance between you and God. God, I can't do it. I don't have the power to forgive this person. You don't know what they've done to me. You don't know what they've said about me. And God goes, oh, I know. So let me give you that motor in your engine, and that spiritual engine, and let's rev it up. Let's come to find a solution. Because like I said earlier, being healed of being hurt is not always a moment. Sometimes it's a movement towards it. And we have to rest in our trust of who God is in our life.
Yeah. So let me summarize and conclude by saying this. There's some people in your life that you've not forgiven for something. Maybe you can't talk to them face to face. Maybe it's not even possible. Maybe they passed away. Maybe someone hurt you earlier in your life. But at some point in your quiet time, you can release that to God and say, God, I forgive them. And the cleansing is not for them, it's for you. And that's important in your spiritual journey. That connection with God allows you to say, okay. And then others of you can say, well, I've got a family member, I don't want to talk to them, and no matter what you say to them, I'm not going to talk to them. I go, that's okay too. Because one of the things we try to do here is not lay guilt on you.
That's right.
Because I've received enough guilt in my life, I don't need to spread it around. But I want you to know there is a possibility for something to happen in you. And maybe in your heart, you begin to do the dance with God.
Yeah.
And you begin to realize, hey, this is who I want to be. This is the best version of me. And I trust God to make that happen.
Awesome.
So would you pray for us?
Let's pray, Sun Curves. God, this is a tough teaching to swallow. Because yes, there may be people in our life we haven't forgiven yet. There may be situations that we're still hurt from. But God, there may be people in here who for the first time have come to church because church has hurt them. Maybe church has caused more trauma than transformation. And God, I just pray that by the power of your Spirit, that you would awaken inside them to know that the power of forgiveness lives within them, no matter the circumstance or the situation. So God, give us the strength and the bravery to step out and do that divine dance with you so that forgiveness can be a part and a practice of our spiritual journey starting today. Make that phone call. Help us make that call, that text message, and alleviate and heal from this past trauma. God, let us have a spirit of forgiveness in our hearts. It's in the strong name of Christ we pray. Amen.
Would you stand, please? I want to tell you a story in closing. A few years ago, there was a nationwide poll that asked this question: what word or phrase would you like to hear uttered to you most sincerely? What phrase would you like to hear? And can you guess the first thing people wanted to hear? I love you. People long to hear I love you. The second phrase was interesting. It's you are forgiven. You know what the third phrase is? Supper's ready. So here's what I want to ask. How long has it been since you heard these words? I love you. God's unconditional love. You are forgiven. God's amazing acceptance. And supper's ready? Ready? There's a place for you at his table. God's unsurpassed invitation. He loves you today. So do we. God bless. Thanks for coming.